about making this one customer happy. And if you can make this one customer happy today, then go on to the next one, you'll reach your goals.
It's not okay to go out there and not do your job well. I don't care what the situation in the game is. There is no scoreboard.
Listen, I'm a door.
Anything except winning the game. So we're going to play everybody who can expedite winning the game. That's what we're going to do. So I don't think anybody should expect us to do anything else.
Man. I love it. And you always pick up something. Do it and you practice it until you can't get it wrong.
Not till you get it right.
So until you can't get it wrong. People sit at the light party like, what's he listening to? And I'm thinking I'm listening to some Kevin Hart or whatever.
We have to promote these principles and values in what we do so these kids understand the things they need to do. You know, Muhammad Ali always said, you know, I won the fight somewhere far, far away from the lights in the ring. Somewhere on a road, doing road work, somewhere in a dirty, stinky ring, gym someplace, preparing to fight my best fight. And that's what we need to do a better job of, I think, in this day and age with our people. It goes back to intensity, immediacy, sense of urgency that a guy has, what's happening right now, and what kind of intelligence they have, that they can go out and execute and do what they need to do. That's important, and that's individual. And those individuals on your team make your team what it is. Your team cannot make players what they are. The individuals that make up the team make that.
What it takes, you're going to get those done. And you're not going to let anything distract you from the 3 to 5 things. If you're a CEO and you achieve that and you can get those done with 80% of your time based on that, you're extraordinarily successful. You are absolutely, and you're Steve Jobs, or you're an Elon Musk, or you're somebody. If you even talk to Bezos, I don't know him personally, but I've heard in many interviews, like I knew, I've met Elon just a few times. I spent a lot of time with Jobs, but they say the same thing. Bezos will not make a decision after 1 o'clock in the afternoon because he felt that the noise was too high. The signal for him was in the morning hours. You have to get done in the next 18 hours. Not your vision for the business next week or next month or next year. Just the next 18 hours you're awake. You're going to get those 3 things or those 5 things done that you have deemed critical for your mission. They must get done today. Anything that stops you from doing that is the noise. So the signal to noise ratio to be successful for Steve Jobs was 80-20. 80 signal, 20 noise. And I knew that to be true with him because he would email me at 2:30 in the morning, expect me to get back to him, because back then we didn't have texts, it was all email. He was right. He was right.
And particular play. And regardless of what happened on that play, success or failure, you would move on to the next play and have the same focus to do that on the next play. And that you would do that for 60 minutes in the game. And then you would be able to live with the results regardless of what those results were.
So they have this illusion that they have all these choices. But the fact of the matter is if you want to be good, you really don't have a lot of choices because it takes what it takes. You have to do what you have to do to be successful. So you have to make the choices and decisions to have the discipline and the focus to the process of what you need to do to accomplish your goals. And all these guys that think they have a lot of choices are really, sort of sadly mistaken. And I think, as we all have done with our own children, they learn these lessons of life as they get older.
When you go through camp, it's going to be difficult because you're getting yourself ready to play an entire season at a high level. So everybody here has got to have a lot of mental toughness to be able to sustain what we do at a high level. And just because you got beat on the last play, that can't affect the next play. Or that's breaking you. Your frustration is breaking you. Just because you miss a block, or you get blocked, or you miss a tackle, or you fumble the ball. What does it take to break you? Toughness. What does it take to break you? What does it take to break them? All right, so if you really think about toughness and mental toughness, what does it take to break you? I don't care what circumstance you're faced with. What does it take to break your focus because you get frustrated about what happened on the last play? What does it take to make you give in because it's hot outside, or you're tired, or you don't feel like running to the ball or giving effort or finishing the play like you should? because of how you feel, whether you're a little bit hurt? What does it take to break you? I'm not saying it's our goal to try to break you. It's just the way it is in football. When you go through camp, it's going to be
Really memorable game that sort of almost changed the whole dynamics of the psychological approach that we use to motivate teams. And it happened when we played Ohio State in 1998. And they had been number one all the way through. We were 4-5, not a very good team. And we won that game. And we decided to use the approach that we were not going to focus on the outcome, that we were just going to focus on the process of what it took to play the best football you could play, which was to focus on that particular play like it had a history and a life of its own. Don't look at the scoreboard. Don't look at any other external factors. Just all your focus, all your concentration, all your effort, all your toughness, all your discipline to execute went into that particular play. And regardless of what happened on that play, success or failure, you would move on to the next play and have the same focus to do that on the next play. And that you would do that for 60 minutes in the game. And then you would be able to live with the results regardless of what those results were.
Now, to me, that says it all. That says it as well as you can say it. Now, the challenge is that's not natural. It's not normal. What I said before, human nature is to be what? Just to survive. It's not to win the championship. It's not to be special. It's not to have the best business. It's just to do good enough.
Cool. But even so, he actually was very competitive and was like competing for state titles and stuff like that. So I asked him, how did he get good so fast? And he said, I started everything with the end in mind. Like I worked backwards from the pin. I said, like, my goal is to pin them. How do I get there? And every single move I did, I didn't consider the move done until I had pinned him. So what he started doing is he started stringing things together, right? So he didn't just work on a takedown. He worked on a takedown to this, to this, to this, to the pin, and everything was with that in mind. I want you to think that in game, right? What is the end? The end in game is ideally relationship or sex, right? And at the very least, the end is a solid phone number, right? You need to at least have that in mind. Everything you do is with that in mind. And so this idea of I ran out of things to say. Right? It's legitimate. How many people here have ever run out of things to say? Yeah, we've all been there. It's legitimate. It's a real thing. It's a lot easier to just start walking and assume she's going to follow and then deal with it if she doesn't, than to sit there and get her to logically agree to go with you in a lot of cases. Right? Or when you get back to your place, it's a lot easier oftentimes just open the door, throw it open, and walk through it than it is to stand there and be like, so did you want to come in? Are you okay with coming in? Do you feel, no. Just go in. And if she doesn't, then you deal with it if that happens. And in the 20% case that happens, you deal with it. In the 80% case it doesn't, you're golden. Right? And in the 20% case, you throw it in, she goes, so don't think that self-amusement means dancing monkey or performer or something like that. Right? It just means I'm saying what I truly want to say. Sometimes what you want to say can be, that's a fucking boring topic, let's not talk about it. Right? If that's what you really feel and really believe, and that's what you would say to your best friend in that scenario, word and it's time to leave or whatever, and it is awkward, but it's also an opportunity, because when all the conversation topics are dead, you get to pick the next topic, which means you can pick
with information that passed the filter was even more radical. MIT, 1939. Professor Morse assigns advanced calculus reading. Feynman's classmates dutifully copy textbook solutions into their notes, highlighting key steps in yellow. Feynman opens his black marble notebook, blank pages staring back. He reads the problem once, closes the book, then attempts to solve it from scratch. He fails. The algebra breaks down. He tries again with a different approach. Fails again. On the fourth attempt, 6 hours later, he derives a solution, but it looks completely different from the textbook's approach, his method, and LinkedIn thought leadership. Before consuming anything, define your personal 12 problems, the core questions your career, projects, or genuine curiosity revolve around. When you encounter information, ask Feynman's filter question. Which of my 12 problems does this solve? If none, delete it. No guilt, no FOMO. If yes, grounds where new information had to prove relevance to existing obsessions. This created two massive advantages. First, everything he learned had immediate context, making it stick naturally without forced memorization. Second, He avoided information overload because 95% of incoming noise failed the filter test. It was irrelevant to his 12 problems, so it never entered his system. But why did this work when conventional note-taking failed? The cognitive principle is brutal in its simplicity. Your brain can't retain information without connection points. When you passively consume random facts, your brain has nowhere to store them. Colleague, Feynman's solutions were often more elegant than the textbook methods because he came to problems without preconceptions. He had to solve them, not recognize them. This pattern repeated throughout Feynman's career. When asked to review a physics paper, he developed a specific process. First, he would read only the problem statement, then close the paper and attempt to solve it independently. Sometimes this took days. Only after arriving at his own solution would he read the author's approach. If his solution matched the paper's solution, he knew he genuinely understood the problem. If his solution differed, one of two things was true. Either he'd found an error.
I can predict how they'll behave in different configurations. I can design electric motors, generators, MRI machines. I can manipulate magnetic fields to trap particles or focus beams. That's real understanding. That's what physics offers, not comfort.
I've been collecting facts and formulas like stamps in an album, but I hadn't been thinking about what they meant. I hadn't been asking the real questions. So I started doing something different. When I encountered something new, let's say, a principle in physics or mathematics, I would sit down and try to work it out from scratch, not by looking it up, not by memorizing what someone else said. I would ask, if I knew nothing except the most basic facts, could I figure this out? Sometimes I'd spend days on a single idea. I'd invent my own notation. I'd draw pictures. I'd make up little stories about particles or waves or whatever I was studying. Most importantly, I'd test myself. Could I explain this to someone who'd never heard of it before? If I couldn't, I didn't understand it. Simple as that. Let me give you an example. When I was working at Los Alamos during the war, we were doing calculations about the bomb. Serious work, life and death, really. And there were all these brilliant people there, Einstein, Bohr, Oppenheimer. I was just a kid. One day, someone presented a calculation about neutron diffusion. Very complicated, lots of integral equations. Everyone nodded. It looked impressive, but I had this nagging feeling that something was off. I couldn't shake it. So that night I went back to my desk and I thought, forget the fancy mathematics for a moment. What's actually happening here? We have neutrons. They're bouncing around. Some get absorbed. Some cause fissions. It's like a bunch of drunk people wandering through a city, randomly bumping into buildings. I drew a picture. I imagined following a single neutron on its journey. Where does it go? What happens to it? I thought about it in the simplest possible terms, like I was explaining it to a child. And you know what? I found an error, a small one, but it mattered. The fancy mathematics had hidden an incorrect assumption. Everyone had been so busy following the equations that nobody had stopped to ask, does this make physical sense? That taught me something crucial. Understanding isn't about sophistication. It's not about using the right jargon or impressing people with complex formulas. It's about being able to strip away all the decoration and see the naked truth underneath. Here's what I learned to do, and what I still do to this day. First, when someone tells me they understand something, I ask them, can you give me an example? Not the textbook example, repetition alone, but meaningful processing. Your brain stores things that it has worked with, manipulated, questioned, and connected. It's the difference between hearing a phone number once and dialing a phone number. When you dial it, you have to actively recall each digit, place it in sequence, and execute an action. That active retrieval is what creates strong memory traces. There's a principle in neuroscience called the generation effect. It shows that information we generate ourselves is remembered better than information we simply read. If you read a sentence like, the hungry man ate the pizza, you'll remember it somewhat. But if you read the hungry man ate the, and have to supply the word yourself, you'll remember it much better. Why? Because generation requires retrieval. It requires you to search your memory, to activate related concepts, to create something rather than just receive it. This is why summarizing what you read in your own words is so powerful. When you close the book and try to explain the concept to yourself,
physics also shows us the importance of frequency. A steady wave can break through any barrier given enough time. In the same way, when you repeat a practice every day, no matter how small, you create mental vibrations that shape your identity. It's not about brute force. It's about rhythmic consistency. That's why just 10 minutes of daily reading can be more transformative than a single marathon study session. Now, imagine applying this vision to your own brain. You create movement when the mind wants to stop. You channel energy through the paths of least resistance. You establish frequency and rhythm until your identity rewrites itself. This is the invisible engineering of success. It's not about thinking positive. It's about using the very laws of physics to transform your mind into a field of creative energy. When physics program your mind not to procrastinate, declare, I act now. I don't postpone. I make it happen. When you hear your own voice, you create a powerful internal command. It's as if your brain is forced to believe it and obey. That's the trick. Don't wait for motivation to act. Create movement, and motivation will follow. As you hear yourself explaining, you generate an immediate sense of progress. You realize you already know something, that you've already advanced. That small begin by explaining what you need to learn. When you explain out loud, your mind is forced to focus. It can't wander. It can't drift away. You cut through the cycle of procrastination because speaking demands presence. It's impossible to procrastinate while you're producing clarity. And here's a translation.
He said, look, you got a left halfback that's the fastest guy in the state. You got a 3-time All-State guy playing split end. Just call a play that one of those two guys get the ball.
So I called 26 crossfire pass. Threw it to left halfback, faked to him, to the post corner of the X, 25-yard touchdown, and we won the game 19-18. But after the game, he told me this. He says, it really doesn't make any difference what plays you call sometimes. It's what players you have.
All the time that I was at LSU. And I contribute the fact that we played poorly against Kentucky. We won the game on a lucky play. And no one was really ready to acknowledge the fact that we didn't really play that well. Ready, coaches and players alike. They were all relieved. We won the game. Why are you getting on us, coach? Why do we need to know of learning that it wasn't just about winning or losing the game, that there was a process. There was a value placed on how you played the game. And the most difficult thing that I have to deal with is to get people after we win to have the same kind of commitment to improving and changing.
Look, guys, a win is a win. Good plays in the game. But we made a lot of bad plays. I hate to be negative, guys, but that's as bad as we've ever played on special teams. All right, let's
focus on the things that are process-oriented rather than the results.
You know, we're going to play him a little bit. It's really another step in his process of getting...
You've heard me say this 100 times before. Outcomes are a distraction. Focusing on the process of what you have to do to get the outcome is the most important thing you need to do.
Nick Saban says it a lot because he...
But this 34, like 34, you're going to be... This is the best defense for you.
He's like, you can do so much more on the football field than what you do. Nick's a genius. Like, just trust him and go with it. And then I remember I was taking that trip to the Keys and Coach Saban wanted to talk. We ended up getting on the phone. He was like, think some of the names, the Kevin Greens to the Lawrence Taylors, Greg Lloyd. So, I mean, all the guys that have stood up in this 3-4 system. And an hour later, by the time we got done, I was ready to turn the boat around, come back and start practicing. This is like in March or April. He sold me on it, and he expanded my horizons of learning the game of football.
Jason Taylor. That is a Pro Bowl play right there.
It was definitely life and career changing for me in a lot of ways. You have to get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. That's another great thing I learned from Coach Saban. And Coach is always frowning.
So don't come out here with the poor me's. All right, poor me, my ass hurts. Poor me, my ham hurts. Poor me, this. When you hit the field and you walk across the line, that's all over.
Nick Saban had a vision for what every player could be, no matter what or where.
In the pros, if players sense you got one foot out the door, they don't perform, but I don't think there was ever any danger of that with Nick. He's got one speed. He's going to demand your best, whether he's there for a day, a season, half season, or a career.
The party has started as the Browns have won it 20-13.
When you went to Michigan State, I wish the transitions could be as smooth as that one was. And I certainly appreciate, the job you did to finish the year. And I relied on him so heavily on every level.
If we don't play our ass off, they'll beat us.
Curiosity makes effort feel like play, and play is the most efficient form of learning nature has ever invented. It's something that follows curiosity. When you're genuinely interested in a question, distraction loses its grip. The mind that is curious does not have to be forced into learning. It's pulled toward it naturally. The real problem for most learners isn't attention span, it's disconnection. You're trying to learn something that feels distant, mechanical, or imposed. So your brain drifts to anything that promises stimulation. Curiosity, on the other hand, transforms effort into exploration. It turns studying into a search for answers rather than an act of endurance. Curiosity is a signal that your brain senses an unanswered question worth pursuing. It's that itch of why that refuses to be ignored. But curiosity can't survive in an environment of pressure or pretension. When learning becomes about grades, reputation, or performance, detail. Say out loud phrases that reprogram your mind not to procrastinate. Declare, I act now. I don't postpone. I make it happen. When you hear your own voice, you create a powerful internal command. It's as if your brain is forced to believe it and obey. That's the trick. Don't wait for motivation to act. Create movement, and motivation will follow. As you hear yourself explaining, you generate an immediate sense of progress. You realize you already know something, that you've already advanced. That's your mind during small intervals. You don't need hours of absolute silence or perfect conditions. On the contrary, great learners use any moment. If you're waiting for a bus, explain quietly what you just studied. If you're walking, teach yourself the concept you learned earlier that morning. If you're alone in your room, speak out loud as if you were giving a lesson. These stolen minutes of the day are hidden treasures. Most people waste them getting lost in useless distractions. You, however, can use them as a training ground for your brain. It's in these moments that knowledge tools of explanation. A little every day. Anywhere. Always. Now pay very close attention, because this can change the way you deal with procrastination. Whenever you feel stuck, unmotivated to start, use this method as an immediate action trigger. Instead of waiting for the right time to study or work, simply begin by explaining what you need to learn. When you explain out loud, your mind is forced to focus. It can't wander. It can't drift away. You cut through the cycle of procrastination because speaking demands presence. It's impossible to procrastinate while you're producing clarity. And here's a transformative detail. Say out loud phrases that reprogram your mind not to procrastinate. Declare, I act now. I don't postpone. I make it happen. When you hear your own voice, you create a powerful internal command. It's as if your brain is forced to believe it and obey. That's the trick. Don't wait for motivation to act. Create movement, and motivation will follow. As you hear yourself explaining, you generate an immediate sense of progress. You realize you already know something, that you've already advanced. That small requires understanding something specific about how behavior works. Every action has three components: a cue, a routine, and a consequence. The cue triggers the behavior. The routine is the behavior itself, and the consequence determines whether the behavior will be repeated. Most people ignore the cue entirely. They think if they just remember to do something, they'll do it. But memory is unreliable, especially when you're busy or tired. What you need is an external trigger, something in the environment that automatically prompts the action. The most powerful cues are time and place. This is why scheduling matters. Not because time is magical, but because a clock is a reliable external signal. 7 o'clock Monday morning happens whether you think about it or not. The clock hand arrives at the right position, and that physical fact in the world can trigger your behavior. Place works the same way. If you always study at the same desk, in the same chair, That location becomes associated with the activity. You sit down and the brain says, "Oh, this is where we do physics problems." The behavior becomes attached to the space. This is why people who exercise at the same gym at the same time have much better success than people who say, "I'll exercise when I have time." When you have time is not a cue, it's a wish. The real problem is that goals and a piece of furniture in a room nobody uses. What's going on? The answer isn't what most people think. It's not about willpower. It's not about wanting it badly enough. The real problem is that goals and actions live in different worlds, and most people never build the bridge between them. Think about what a goal actually is. It's a description of a future state. I want to learn physics. I want to write a book. I want to be in better shape. These are descriptions, nothing more. And here's the beautiful part. As you practice these techniques, something remarkable happens. Learning becomes easier. Not because the material gets simpler, but because your mind becomes stronger. You develop mental tools that work across domains. You build confidence in your ability to figure things out. You stop being afraid of difficult material because you know how to break it down and understand it. This is what people mistake for genius. It's not some innate gift. It's a trained skill. The difference between someone who seems brilliant and someone who struggles isn't the brain they were born with. It's how they've learned to use that brain. Think about the implications of this. If understanding is a skill you can develop, then the limits on what you can learn are far broader than most people imagine. That subject that seems impossibly difficult, it's probably just being approached wrong. Those people who seem naturally talented, they've probably just developed better learning strategies, often without even realizing it. The tragedy is that most educational systems teach the exact opposite of what actually works. They reward memorization. They discourage questioning. They present knowledge as finished facts to be absorbed, rather than ideas to be rebuilt and understood. They create the illusion that learning means hearing information, when real learning means transforming information into understanding. You can break free from this. You can train your mind. Start small. Pick one thing you're trying to learn right now. Apply these principles. Close the book and try to explain it. Test yourself ruthlessly. Play with the ideas. Simplify them to their core. It will be uncomfortable at first. You'll discover how much you don't actually understand. That's good. That discomfort is the feeling of real learning happening. That's your brain being challenged to actually think rather than just absorb. Stay with it. Build the habit. Make this how you approach everything you learn and watch what happens over time. Understanding compounds. Connections multiply. The mind strengthens. There's a profound satisfaction in genuine understanding that memorization can never provide. It's the difference between carrying someone else's conclusion and discovering the truth yourself. It's the difference between knowing that something is true and understanding why it must be true. This is available to anyone. It's not reserved for the gifted few. It's simply a matter of training your mind to work the way it was meant to work, actively building understanding rather than passively collecting information. The universe is knowable. Reality follows patterns we can comprehend. The laws of nature, the structure of mathematics, the flow of history, the logic of language, all of it can be understood by a mind willing to do the work of understanding. So here's the challenge. Stop asking whether you're smart enough. Start asking whether you're thinking deeply enough. The genius you admire in others, it's not magic, it's method. And action, the smallest possible. If you're going to study, read 2 lines. If you're going to create, write 1 sentence. If you're solving something complex, describe the problem in plain words. The brain hates starting, but loves continuing. The trick is to bypass inertia. Once the mind begins to roll, it does the rest on its own. And here comes the most overlooked part of all. Record your progress at the end. Just 2 lines. What did I create or understand? What is the next specific physical action? This prevents your brain from having to store loose bits. Every unresolved thought becomes a pirate radio station making noise inside your head. Writing them down silences the chaos. Do this and watch your cognitive performance explode. Not because you became disciplined, but because you finally treated focus as what it truly is, a mental architect, pure engineering. And you end up with that fake sensation of, I worked all day, without producing anything real. Here comes the practical part. Remove interference before you start, not during, before. The brain is like a clever child. If you leave a toy in the corner of the room, it will go after it. So get it out of reach. No notifications, no random tabs, no objects screaming, touch me for 30 seconds. 30 seconds become 30 minutes. Concrete result. Do I want to exist at the end of this slice of time? This sentence is another cognitive laser. It cuts interference, sets boundaries, and tells your brain exactly where to aim its energy. Without this question, you enter a mental block like someone entering a dark room trying to tidy it up blindfolded. With it, you walk in, turning on the light. Now listen closely to the method. The block must be short. The human mind was not built for hours of uninterrupted focus. It was built for cycles. Short bursts of deep intensity, followed by tiny recovery breaks. When you respect this, productivity doubles. When you ignore it, you end up with that fake sensation of, with deliberate focus. Ask yourself one single question before any mental work session. What do I want to exist at the end of this block of time? This tiny sentence is a cognitive laser. It aligns the brain, cuts distractions, forces clarity, and clarity is fuel for performance. A session without a question is a wasted session, like running without direction. It tires you out, but takes you nowhere. Remember, your brain does not work for you. It works to save energy. It is lazy by design. It lives the world as you believe it is. Pay attention now. When someone tells you, that's impossible, what they're really saying is, that's impossible according to my mental map. But your map can be different. And this is where the fun begins. When you realize you can redraw your internal borders. Now imagine a topic that has been blocking you. Instead of drowning in piles of pages, stop and do this. Describe the problem in one clear sentence. Create a simple everyday scene that represents it. Explain it as if you were teaching it to a child who just arrived in the world. Done. You just built your first mental prototype. Now comes the step that boosts your ability to learn and act. Every extra detail must ask for permission to enter your model. Ask it what role it plays, what phenomenon it explains.
Undergraduates when other Nobel laureates couldn't explain it to each other. This is why his lectures became legendary. This is why he could walk into the Challenger investigation with no aerospace background and identify the O-ring failure in days while engineers with decades of experience missed it. This is why he won the Nobel Prize solving problems others had memorized but never understood. But more importantly, this reveals a deeper truth about learning itself. Angle off water, but because he understood electromagnetic waves, understood how they interact with matter, and could predict outcomes from fundamental principles. The students had no models, they had scripts. And scripts only work when reality follows the exact scenarios you've memorized. Feynman confronted this head-on in his final lecture. He brought broken radios into class and asked students to make them work. No formulas allowed, just think. He took them outside and made them explain ordinary phenomena using physics principles. He banned memorized definitions and demanded explanations in their own words. Some students resisted. This felt harder than memorizing, and it was. Thinking always is. But a few started to break through.